Understanding this simple concept about hunger will transform your diet and relationship with food in under a month. We're talking less emotional eating, less feeling famished during the day, and less of a push-pull relationship with food. At the core of today's topic, we're talking about the 7 different types of hunger, a concept from mindful eating that we use to find a natural, healthy balance with food without restrictive and rigid diets. And for those of you who might be new to mindful eating is a non-diet, judgment-free approach to eat the foods you love while simultaneously fueling your body intentionally for overall health and vitality. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome. My name is Katie. I'm a registered dietitian and certified personal trainer, and here on the channel we talk about all things mindful eating, nutrition, and fitness. You can check out my favorite products, my free trainings, including my Mindful Eating for Beginners masterclass, and how to work with me, all in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into the video. You might be wondering, okay, Katie, why are we talking about 7 different types of hunger? I mean, hunger is pretty simple, right? I eat food when my stomach's growling and I stop when I'm full. What more is there to know? But actually, the different types of hunger and cravings that we experience matter a ton. Because if we're not satisfying or being mindful of the different types of hunger and how they impact us, we can run into issues like overeating and binge eating, undereating, emotional eating, and imbalanced eating. In other words, having too much of one macro category and not enough of another. So first we're gonna start all the way from the top with more of the mental and psychological and emotional types of hunger. And then we're gonna go all the way down the body and talk about the other types of hunger that you might experience, some of which you may actually understand, but didn't really have words to describe. So either way, I think it'll be really helpful for you to gain more mindfulness and make peace with some of the hungers that you experience. The first type of hunger that we can experience is emotional hunger. And a lot of times emotional hunger can indicate unmet emotional needs. This is a little bit different than the other forms of hunger because typically in most of these types of hunger, the solution is to seek out food, but sometimes emotional hunger can indicate that you need something beyond food to actually meet your needs. Emotional eating is often tied to our desire to feel protected, loved, and cared for. Tackling this type of hunger requires grace, self-compassion, and nourishment in all forms. So I want to emphasize that just because you're experiencing emotional hunger and may have needs beyond actual food, this does not necessarily mean that you cannot have food during this time period or that it's wrong or bad to have food when you're feeling emotional as well. In fact, it might be good to have a balanced, nourishing meal that makes you feel good in that moment. But when you are experiencing this type of hunger and you recognize that there may be something deeper that's not just a need for food, reach out to your therapist or your registered dietitian. Journal and write out what feelings are coming up. What are they rooted and tied back to? If you're feeling a little bit blocked and don't feel like journaling or meditation is even possible in the moment, take a walk out in nature and try to clear your head as much as possible and come back and ask yourself these questions. It can be journaling or just in your head. What do I need right now? If you've ever heard of rain meditation, this is a perfect time to do it. Even if you just do the journaling component of it, we could take up a whole nother video talking about the steps of it, but it is Number 1, recognize what is coming up for you. Number 2, acceptance. Can I be with this moment? I, investigate. What is actually going on? What is the underlying thing that's happening here? And finally, N, nurture. What do I need in this moment? What compassion would I give a friend or a loved one or a cute little puppy? These are just some of the many ways that you can start to tackle emotional eating if you find yourself experiencing it. Next up is mind hunger. And this can sound similar maybe to the last one that we just talked about, but it's a little bit different. And here is how. Mind hunger, I can also think of as social psychology hunger. So a lot of it is how we kind of logic our way into eating certain ways based on how we were raised as children or based on our current situation right now. It can be both past and present. Here's an example. If you grew up in a family where you had a lot of siblings and at the dinner table you had a certain amount of food on the table, and if you didn't get your portion fast enough, you knew other people will. this can actually impact how you treat food in the present. Even though you're maybe no longer eating with your siblings every single day, it's still part of your deep-rooted psychology. It's kind of a learned hunger or a learned habit in how we approach food. And here's another example that's actually totally different from this, but another great example of mind hunger. Were you a magazine reader like I was back in the day and reading all these women's or men's health magazines that were telling you to eat a certain way? Only eat the salad at the restaurant, or only eat if it's before 6 p.m. This is a sort of learned hunger and not necessarily a true hunger. So we may convince ourselves that we don't like bread because of our favorite social media guru saying they don't eat bread. And we may eat faster or slower based on whether or not we were in a big family versus a small family where you really didn't have to fight over meals or snacks. For this one, really lean into your inner wisdom with food. So if you find yourself resisting carbs, even though in the past you really enjoyed them, dig deeper and think, what is causing me to resist carbs? Do I really need to resist carbs? Or is that more of a learned hunger where I'm resisting just because I think it's bad or wrong? This can be really challenging, and we talk a lot more in depth about this in my Mindful Muscles Academy. So if this topic interests you, definitely check out my Mindful Eating Nutrition program in the description below. You'll get $100 off as a promo until December 31st. So definitely hop on that deal because we're not going to have a lot of promos going on for a while. Maya's so cute right now. She's on my lap and I'm going to show you. This is my little baby. So sweet. All right, next up we have eye hunger. It's often said that we eat first with our eyes. So this one I think is twofold. First, you want to make sure that you are not disengaging with your meal while you're having it. So whether you are having it at home and you're just not engaging with your plate very much, or being distracted while eating, whether you're checking your phone or reading a newspaper, etc. Or if you find yourself often eating while you are in the car where you can't really honestly pay attention to your meal, then you might find that while you are actually fueling, you're not engaging with eye hunger, so you are hungry again later. Your brain doesn't always register that you've eaten the amount that you've had. So to satisfy eye hunger, definitely start by paying attention to the colors, textures, shapes, and arrangements of the food that is present in front of you, if at all humanly possible. Now, there is a big exception here. Of course, listen to your body. If you are, for example, on the way home from work and you haven't eaten since 12 o'clock and you need something to eat so you can actually engage in driving and be safe, then definitely have a snack. This is not like a hard and fast rule, but just something to keep in mind. Now, another thing to keep in mind with eye hunger is, what does your plate look like? I know some people probably enjoy this more than others. I know for me, I have to have like a colorful looking, beautiful presentation on my plate. I don't like to have a plate that doesn't look kind of cute and fun and attractive to the eye. Maybe that sounds weird. Let me know in the comment section below if you're like that too. But just making everything look appetizing is super important for me, so it might be for you as well. This is definitely, again, on a spectrum for different people. But think of it this way. There are definitely some plates out there, like food that you might eat at a cafeteria, that look a lot less appetizing than if you were to have similar food maybe, but prep it a little bit differently and also present it a little differently. There is so much to be said about the presentation of a meal or snack to make it more appetizing and to allow yourself to be a little more mindful and in the moment when you're enjoying that meal. Next up is nose hunger. This one is definitely gonna sound weird, but hear me out. Our hunger can be stimulated by the simple smell of food. So if you've ever walked by a bakery and weren't hungry at all, but all of a sudden you smell the giant waft of cookie or pie or whatever it is, and now your stomach is growling. That is an example of nose hunger. But again, this one is also kind of a twofold thing. So with the first half, make sure that when you're enjoying the smells and maybe you are attracted to a meal or a snack or a treat because of nose hunger, just check in with yourself and make sure, can I enjoy this mindfully? am I really hungry, or how hungry am I, and how can I enjoy this treat in a way that is both fueling my goals and also, fueling my cravings as well, because I think both are important. It's definitely not saying that you shouldn't enjoy that sweet treat that you smell, simply to say, make sure that you take a step back and recognize your hunger signals in the moment, and don't just eat without consciously thinking about it. It's the mindfulness that counts. It's not just whether or not you're gonna have the food or not, if that makes sense. The second part of nose hunger is that you might notice that when you aren't taking the time to enjoy the aromas of a meal, or maybe you're sick and you're just literally not able to enjoy those aromas, then it impacts the satisfaction that you get from that meal. So oftentimes when you're sick, you'll notice that meals and snacks don't sound very appetizing because you aren't able to satisfy both nose hunger and mouth hunger, because mouth and nose are very highly correlated. We get a lot of our taste from our smell, actually. So while you may not be able to really control whether or not you can enjoy nose hunger when you're sick, there are ways that you can do it when you are not sick. So for example, if you have a lot of prepackaged foods, you're probably not getting a ton of satisfaction from nose hunger because you're not smelling them very well, unless it's like, I don't know, like beef jerky or something like that. Packaged foods don't really give that satisfaction factor from the nose. So if you recognize this is happening, and maybe this is the cause of you craving different foods all the time, try having a home cooked meal. It can be super simple, like a soup that has a nice aroma to it, so you can kind of easily get back into the habit of satisfying nose hunger. The next type of hunger is mouth hunger. You might notice this when you have specific cravings for certain textures and or flavors. Using myself as an example, in the morning, I am not a fan of a savory breakfast a majority of the time. A lot of times I like to enjoy oatmeal or maybe a protein waffle with peanut butter or something like that. I'm not huge on eggs unless it's paired with something that's kind of sweet, like maybe OJ or something like that. Some of you might also enjoy creamy peanut butter versus crunchy peanut butter. And some of you might more often crave stuff like pretzels and chips that are crunchy and salty, or maybe salted nuts, stuff like that. And some of you may be on the sweet side where you crave cookies, cakes, candy, stuff like that more often than you would the savory options. These are all examples of mouth hunger, and it isn't just exclusive to treat foods and stuff like that. I know I gave that as an example just now, but this is also akin to different things like snacks. So think, what am I craving right now? Am I craving something salty and crunchy like trail mix and pretzels? Or am I craving something creamy and sweet, like maybe fruit with yogurt or something like that? Before we get into the last two types of hunger, thanks so much for sticking around for this whole video. I hope you're learning a thing or two. Let me know in the comments section below, what type of hunger have you noticed or experienced, and which ones are just totally new to you? Let me know in the comment section below, and also let me know what questions you have so I can do more videos like this one around mindful eating in the future. And if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It really helps out the channel, and thank you so much to all of you who are already subscribed. You can also show some love to the channel by donating to my creator wish list, which I will leave in the description below. Right now, my current goal is to upgrade to a Canon R6, so that is on my wish list right now. Any and all donations and support in all forms are very much appreciated, and thank you so much for just being a part of this channel. Link is in the description, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/dbnutrition/wishlist to check it out. The second to last type of hunger is stomach hunger. So you've probably heard of this one before, and it's probably no surprise to you. This is the one that you probably thought of when I first introduced the idea of hunger and fullness at the beginning of the video. But with stomach hunger, while it's well known to most of us, we don't often appreciate its nuance. When we're out of alignment with stomach hunger, oftentimes we'll only notice the ravenous hunger when we will eat anything in sight, or when we are feeling overly stuffed. If this sounds like you, I want you to do a hunger and fullness challenge for the next couple of days. This isn't something you have to do forever, but This is something that can get you in tune with your hunger and fullness signals again if you feel like you're kind of off or out of alignment. So what I encourage is check in with yourself every single hour of the window of time where you normally eat. Call it 7 a.m. to probably 9 or 10 p.m. or whatever your window is for you, and ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry am I? And I also encourage to kind of keep a log of this so you can track it and also look back on it and see what kind of data you've observed from this, because this can be really helpful to kind of acknowledge, okay, maybe I am not eating enough during the day and this is causing me to feel ravenously hungry at night. Or maybe I'm eating too much at lunch and that's making me feel poor for my workouts and stuff like that. Even if you feel pretty acclimated to your hunger and fullness cues and feel like you know yourself pretty well, I encourage you to do this every couple of months as just kind of a mindful activity to keep you aligned with your hunger and fullness signals. And our last form of hunger is cellular hunger. This is one that you might not have heard of before, but that you may have more experience with than you think. This hunger describes when we are hungry for nutrients like water, salt, protein, fats, carbs, and minerals and vitamins. We may experience this type of hunger if we're significantly restricting ourselves from certain foods or groups of foods. And this is really vital to mindful eating, because mindful eating is not just being aware of our food choices and being in the moment with food, it's also listening to our body's unique cues in telling us what we need in that moment. So yes, your body is extremely intelligent and it's always seeking homeostasis. So you'll notice that your mouth gets really dry and you might feel lightheaded when you are extremely thirsty or dehydrated. That is your body signaling to you that you need more water. And we often don't judge that signal from our body, right? But for some reason, when we think about this in terms of food, we have a ton of judgment and labeling going on around these cravings. While this is not saying that if you crave red meat, for example, that you are deficient in iron, it may still be a symbol that you need certain nutrients that are in red meat. And if you're craving things like nuts or seeds or anything like that, you may actually be craving the nutrients that are often found in nuts and seeds, like zinc, for example. I think one of the most common places where I see this is when people overall are just not getting enough energy in and they're not sure why they're always craving foods constantly. It's because if you are not eating enough calorie-wise, your body is going to fight and fight and fight for you to get back up to the homeostasis that it desires. It's gonna try everything in its power to make sure you are fed. And same thing goes for when you are on an extremely low-carb diet. If you find yourself craving carbs, there is no shame in that. This is literally because your brain and the rest of your body prefers to use carbs for energy. So again, it's gonna fight back for that equilibrium and homeostasis. The key takeaway here is don't discount when your body is sending you signals and messages. It's always providing feedback for you to interpret. And when we go against that feedback, this is when we disconnect with mindful eating and disconnect with our body's natural intuition. And the more you learn to interpret your body's signals, I think personally, the better your relationship with food and the better you'll be able to naturally, intuitively fuel your body. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. And if you want to keep hanging out with me here on YouTube, click or tap the screen to head on over to the next video where I'll share with you the 5 things that I wish everyone knew about a healthy diet. Bye guys.